Okay, thank you, Carla. Hey, I'm gonna have to take my time because it was mentioned that last time we started a little bit early. So I'm gonna go ahead and read our presenter's bio that she sent me to maybe take up some of that time. Uh, our presenter today is gonna be Viviana Ricardez, and her presentations are gonna be Turtles of the Texas Hill Country, home to endemics and more. Um, Viviana is the vice president of the Texas Turtles organization, and she oversees its daily operations. She is also a member of the IUCN SSC Tortoise and Freshwater Turtle Specialist Group. I know that's a lot of initials, but I'm sure that Viviana will be able to explain that when she takes over with the presentation. And I apologize for not knowing that in advance. Uh, okay, sorry about that interruption. I'm gonna have to disconnect the phone or something. Okay, fueled by her lifelong passion for turtles and herpetology, she works tirelessly to study, documented, document and publish on the ecology and natural history of Texas turtles. Viviana is active in conservation and research efforts with turtles, traveling across the state of Texas to work on multiple long-term population monitoring studies. In addition, she is responsible for organizing the Texas Turtles research study sites throughout the state. And I know that Viviana was at the annual meeting last year, and I know that her presentations were and her partners' presentations. I think it's the president were standing room only on the room. So I mean, so I had to reach out to her, and I was excited that she was able to join us and give the presentation. And so, Viviana, if you don't mind, we'll spend a little time before we get you starting with the presentation. But what does the IUCN stand for?
Yeah, it's the IUCN's Turtle and Freshwater Turtle and Tortoise and Specialist Group. It's basically a group of turtle nerds and biologists that get together and like kind of have a listserv and do a lot of work across the world. So
Okay, and then I also want to preface the presentation because you and I had a discussion on what things in specific you could tell us for the hill country, but there was a concern that you brought up. So could you please review that before the presentation?
I'll talk. Sure, I talk about it a little bit in the talk, but poaching that I'll get into is a big issue. So I will be pretty general with a lot of the details of where some species are, kind of thing. You'll see, but you'll get an idea of the county is where I'll talk more in general than specifics.
Okay, good. Yeah, because before we got into the details, and then it was a concern. So I said, "Oh yeah, well, it makes sense," and I appreciate the fact that you don't want to endanger these turtles by posting information, site-specific information, so that the poachers would go, just get online, whether it be through the presentation or through the live stream. So
poachers use a lot of tools that we all have access to, but so I'll keep things generic, but y'all will recognize a lot of the stuff, and I'll talk about it a little bit before we get started. Like, for example, if anyone ever reaches out to someone one-on-one, specifically like through Facebook or whatever, and they don't look like they're a biologist or a researcher or someone with an actual affiliation that's just trying to ask you, hey, where did you get that turtle? Or can you send me a pin drop? Refrain from sending specific locations, and I'll mention this a little bit again when I get started, but things like that. Is it this because poaching and people seeking out turtles for their own personal gain is,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that when you brought it up. I never thought about that from that perspective. So it was kind of a refresher and eye opener as to understand why we don't do things like that, especially
just be cognizant of specific locations when it comes to and I'll get into all that. So a little bit longer, but I can start sharing my screen.
Okay, that'll work.
If that works for y'all, let me see if this works properly. Can everyone see that? How does that look?
You're coming out on this end. I can see it very well. So thank you. We probably got a couple of seconds.
Yeah,
So,
we'll have give it a little bit more time, but I can at least have my screen up and ready to go.
and I appreciate the patience that you're helping me with.
Oh,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Not a problem at all.
Okay, 7 o'clock. It's all yours.
Awesome. Let's get started.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Viviana Ricardez, Vice President of TexasTurtles.org. We are a conservation research nonprofit organization that's focused on conservation, ecology, and natural history and education of the species here in Texas. And we got our start really as just a website back in 2007, TexasTurtles.org. And it was started by herpetologist and our president, Carl Franklin. And then from there, we created a Facebook group got created so that people could post questions, ask for ID pictures, send in pictures, just whatever it is in regards to natural history and the natural lives of turtles here in Texas. So that's Texas Turtles Facebook group. And then we officially became a 501c3 nonprofit back in 2019. And like I said, the Facebook group started kind of before there was things like iNaturalist and stuff like that. So it's been such a really good tool for us to learn a lot about turtles across the state from, people sending in pictures and asking questions. Like I mentioned, the president of our organization is Carl Franklin, myself as vice president. Our secretary is Sal Shabata, who is also an Alamo Chapter Master Naturalist. And our treasurer is Heather Lowe. So why turtles, our mission, our goal, what do we do as an organization? Well, to be frank, there's a Texas-sized hole in our knowledge of Texas's turtles. Texas is home to almost half the turtle diversity in the U.S. So lots of turtles here and lots of work that can be done. Well, and why turtles? A question that I've gotten my whole life. Turtles and tortoises are now the most endangered group of vertebrates, more than anything else. They're now the most endangered group of vertebrates. And they are so key and critical to our ecosystem. A lot of people, understand the impact of an organism or a species inside the ecosystem. For turtles, like I said, they have an incredibly high biomass, which is basically their impact in our ecosystem. Energy flow between the ecosystems in our rivers, lakes, streams, ponds. They have a very important role in the food web as predators and as prey. Lots of other animals rely on, turtles as form, for them to eat, as well as turtles will eat other animals in our ecosystem. We all know about like how birds are seed dispersals. Turtles do the same thing as far as spreading seed dispersals, not just eating it and going in the bathroom by spreading seeds, but also things like carrying it on themselves or on their shell. So really, really important. And I think they do have such a huge ecological impact that many people I think don't realize. So that's one thing that we try to inform and teach people about. Let's see. Like everything else in our world, threats facing many of our animals, plants, animals, everything, they've got many of the same threats. Currently, 60% of the world's species of turtles are facing extinction. And of course, that's things like habitat loss, pollution. We all know plastics. With turtles, poaching for food or poaching for the pet trade. There has been a huge demand across the globe, specifically Asia, of turtles as pets. So poaching's have become a huge issue there. And then things like road mortality, when female turtles go to lay eggs, and urbanization, interactions with humans, things like that are big threats to our turtles and tortoises across the globe. Some of the aspects of what we do as an organization is things like natural history publications and publishing in scientific journals. Everything we work on, we collect series of data, all with the intention of it being published and put back out into science for any other nerds, the future, everyone to see what we have learned and things we've documented. Things like long-term population monitoring studies is one thing that we do, which I'll get into. Education outreach, presentations, events, again, the scientific publications, down to just visual observations and documenting turtles in Texas. So one aspect of our work that is the long-term population monitoring studies is basically what I refer to as the mark, measure, weigh, pit tag of our work. We have designated study sites across the state, and we pick either however frequently we're going to attend a specific study site, for example, like say twice a year, for example. And we go out to that location and sample and survey turtles depending on where we're working. So sometimes we'll set things like baited hoop traps in order to catch the turtles, or hand capture, just depends where we're working. And each turtle that is caught, the same set of data and morphometrics is collected off each individual turtle. So things like we weigh them, measure the shell height, measure how big it is. Each turtle is given a microchip or a pit tag, which is a passive integrated transponder, just like the ones that people put in their cats or dogs. It's just like that. We insert a pit tag in each turtle, and the pit tag has a specific number associated. So every time we capture that turtle going forward, we'll take the same set, the same measurements, and it's the best way to track growth, finding out how many males to females they are, finding out a population side, all kinds of really great data and information and natural history observations that we can learn by doing surveys like this. And so you do this over the course of many, many years. And the longer you can do a survey and stick to it and get all this data, really comes out some really, really neat, amazing information from them. Well, that's one aspect of our work. Texas has these amazing, beautiful ecoregions that you've all heard and learned about, or you'll continue to learn about. Whether you're in the piney woods of East Texas or if you're in the hill country of Central Texas, there's amazing, unique turtle diversity to be had anywhere in the state. Some turtle species are only found in certain parts of the state, and some turtle species you can find across the state. So we are very lucky to have some really cool ecoregions that allow for such a great diversity of our turtle species. There are 35, 36, depending on who you talk to, different types of turtles. So like I said, that's a lot of turtles, and it makes people like me and those of us that really love these animals, very fortunate to be able to work. Lots of low-hanging fruit as far as scientific and natural history observations and things that we can learn from so many turtle species. 4 that I'm going to cover and that are really near and dear to me are the Texas endemics. So endemic meaning found nowhere else in the world. And lucky for y'all, all of these occur in Central Texas and are pretty easy for y'all to pick out in a weekend if you're hanging out near the river. The first one is this one in the top left, Texas map turtle, Texas cooter, top right, the Kegel's map turtle, bottom left, and the Guadalupe spiny softshell. So we're going to start off with the first endemic of the evening, the Texas cooter. This is a large, hard-shelled turtle, and it can be found in a good portion across the state of Texas. All these counties here in red on the range map are where they have been documented from. They occur in the Brazos, Colorado, Guadalupe, San Antonio River systems, and part of the Nueces River systems. This turtle's got lots of yellow striping down the side of the neck and its head. A lot of them will possess kind of this little Y. I don't know if y'all can see my arrow of where it's pointing, but this Y alongside its jaw. Some have more of a broken Y, but nonetheless, they typically all have this Y to them. A green, aquamarine, bluish green, color eye, and the head shape on them kind of has this little bit of a stout, with a slightly pointy nose head shape to him. So if you're watching them basking on logs, you can look at these features and see if you can ID a Texas cooter that, like I said, is going to be pretty common throughout your part of the state. Here's an example of a baby Texas cooter. Again, very cute, very adorable, lots of green and an intricate pattern when they're not covered with algae, and pretty common to be found in the springtime when they're hatching, and just a pretty popular one that people kind of can come across. A couple terms for y'all is going to be the word carapace, which means the shell of the turtle, this top part of the shell, and then the plastron, which is the belly of a turtle. This is a example of a female Texas cooter that we found crossing the road one year in Gonzales, Texas. And you can see large oval shape, smooth shell to it, lots of olive greens and browns. The plastron with the creamy yellows, an intricate pattern on the edge of the shell. Their legs will have a lot of orange and red coloration to it. So very large, smooth, hard shell turtle. A unique identifier for the Texas cooter is if you're lucky enough to see one crossing the road or be able to see one face to face, is they have this alveolar surface. It looks like teeth, but they're not teeth. It's the surface inside of their mouth that they use for eating vegetation, things like algae. They're kind of like little cows of our river systems. So they do eat a lot of vegetation. So you can see that if you're able to get close to one and see this. Almost looks like if you're looking into a cave, like stalagmites and stalactites for the inside of their mouth. And this is unique for Texas cooters, but lots of other cooter species and other turtles have different or similar surfaces inside their mouth. The Texas cooter also has this notch, or some people refer to it as bicuspid, or a medial notch on the forefront of its and on its top of its beak here. And so that's one way to identify if you're looking at a Texas cooter. Onto the Guadalupe spiny softshell. So spiny softshells, why are they called spiny? They don't really have any spines. They don't have spines, but they have this sandpaper-like texture. This turtle is going to be found in these counties in red. The Colorado, Guadalupe, Lavaca, Nueces, and San Antonio River systems. So it's going to be found in y'all's region of the state. Again, they kind of are these flying saucers and these pancakes of the waterways. This sandpaper-like texture. They will have a row of tubercles or bumps along behind the neck here, the top part of the carapace, and this snorkel-like nose. And so they're very identifiable when you watch them swimming through the water, and they can be pretty quick. Here's a female spiny softshell from Travis County, and kind of what you would see if you see them swimming across the river there. An example of a baby. Like I said, just the miniature versions of themselves. And then the photo on the right of a male with that sandpaper-like texture you can kind of make out from this little rubbery pancake style turtle. There is also a softshell turtle called the smooth softshell. And if you look at the range maps on the right, the range map at the top, the counties in red are where the smooth softshell is documented from. So a bit north of y'all versus the range of the spiny softshells on the bottom here. The main lot of differences between obviously the smooth and the spiny is that the smooth carapace is completely smooth and lacks that sandpaper texture, lacks those bumps. This turtle is going to have a more of an amber golden color eye. And if you're able to look at one head on and catch the nostrils on a smooth softshell are going to be perfectly round. And the spiny softshell has are not perfectly round. So there's a quick different little bit of side by side that there is two different types of soft shell here in Texas, and the smooth soft shell, occurring in these counties in red, a lot less likely or pretty, difficult to be seen sometimes. They like very specific habitats. Using softshell turtles as an example of sexual dimorphism, which means that males and females are different. These photos represent a large female spiny softshell on the left and a full-grown male spiny softshell on the right. You can see females get so much larger than males. And it's, when people send in, or if you watch them basking or swimming and you see just a really large soft shell turtle, you're going to know it's a female if it's that big. And then, of course, hanging out on the smaller side, they're going to be males. Another example of sexual dimorphism, and this varies between each different turtle species, depends on what you're looking at. I like to call it the nails and tails. Males' nails for things like the cooter and the slider are going to have much longer fingernails. And this is because the males will use the fingernails to coax and go and kind of looks like they're giving turtle kisses and tickle the side of a female's face and trying to get her to mate with him. A lot of times you can get a good shot of turtle's tails while they're basking. This one on the right, you can see how thick tail it has, and that's why we know it's a male. So a lot of the stuff you can ID from, using binoculars, cameras, and just being able to observe them swimming around. Onto the Texas map turtle. So this endemic are found in he's found in the bodies of water that form the Colorado River system. And then these counties in red. So some of the counties that y'all cover. Let's see, from Travis County, Tom Green, Lampasas, Burnett, Williams, Blanco, Mason, Menard, Kimball, Bastrop, down to Fayette County. Really nice, has a pretty good range throughout the state. Now, this is going to be more of a medium-sized hard-shell turtle. They have more of a keel and a distinctive keel down the center of their shell, down the center of their carapace. Lots of orange and yellows, an intricate pattern, and they're called map turtles because of the pattern of the skin and the shell that kind of looks like a topographical map. So this turtle is going to have a white eye with a black iris. And again, lots of this coloration and these blotches behind the side of its head. Here's an example of a hatchling Texas map turtle. Again, you can see this really different shell shape, this intricate pattern, these orange colorations, these 3 chin dots, these dots under its chin that'll help you ID if you're looking at a Texas map turtle, and some side-by-sides of a full-grown male and a full-grown female Texas map turtle. Males max out around 4 inches, females double that. You're going to see this, lots of the yellow striping, the high keel on both of them, and just an overall different look. Let's see. Here's a male with the 3 chin spots, and what it would look like for a female swimming along the river system if you were looking down upon her, with a much different head size. Females and males have very different diets. Like I showed you the inside of the other turtle, this female Texas map turtle is more equipped to eat things like corbicula. You can see this larger crushing surface, and that her head shape is going to be bigger than that of a male's, and males will specialize in eating things like freshwater sponges and caddis fly nips. So another thing unique to these turtles. And then here's another close-up of the 3 orange chin spots of the Texas map turtle. If you're lucky enough to ever go snorkeling or you see turtles swimming along the water, here they are perfectly camouflaged with their habitat, a male on the right and a female on the left. And like I said, there's the unique shell shape. Here's a thick tail on the male and just absolutely perfectly camouflaged. And then finally, a side by side of a full-grown female, and there is a full-grown male Texas map turtle basking on top of her. A lot of people will think the smaller one is a juvenile or a young turtle, when many times it's a full-grown male. Onto the Kegel's map turtle, a very special, unique, and one that is in y'all's region. This is the fourth of our endemics, and it's a turtle that was just described in 1976, so fairly recently. They've been documented from the Blanco, Guadalupe, Medina, San Antonio, San Marcos River systems. So Kerr County, Kendall County, Guadalupe, DeWitt, down to Gonzales and Victoria. They have one of the smaller range maps for all the turtles here in the state. So these counties is this really amazing, unique Kegel's map turtle. This past year, we've teamed up with some friends of ours, Dr. Jesse Meek out at Tarleton University, and he has kicked off a population assessment. So we're helping him with that, going out and surveying and assisting him with surveying the Kegel's map turtles. Not a ton is known about it, so we're gonna, find some more information and data on this. Super exciting project. Kind of like the other map turtles, this map turtle is going to have a nice higher keel. Its head patterning and its head colors are going to be different than that of the Texas map. This turtle, here's another example of its significant shell shape, the high keel. This V pattern on the back of its head is what you're going to look for. A lot more softer yellow colors, creams, greenish, olive colors to this turtle. Let's see. So this past summer when we were out surveying for Kegel's map turtles, this was one female that was caught during the survey, and got a really great close-up headshot of her beautiful intricate pattern in the back of her head. There's that V shape. And then if you can even barely make out, here's what she looks like swimming under in the Guadalupe River, perfectly camouflaged and just perfectly suited for her habitat. Here's the carapace and overall shell shape of a full-grown Kegel's map turtle. Again, an oval, but a different shell shape overall. A plastron that's cream light and some patterning around the edge of the shell. So the beautiful Kerr County is definitely a part of the state that I love and that we get really excited about. Here's a beautiful shot of the Guadalupe River from when we were surveying there this past summer. And you can look down pretty much anywhere and see, here's a Guadalupe spiny softshell that we spotted with our cameras and our binoculars, swimming down below us as we were looking for Kegel map turtles. And of course, not too far, anywhere in the Guadalupe, here's these Kegel's map turtles in Kerr County basking. This little guy making its way, they're great climbers. So you can see using, simple binoculars to find out if it's a Kegel's map turtle, this beautiful head pattern and overall shell shape of it climbing up logs. Again, perfectly suited for their habitat, V shape. And it's just what it looks like if you get to look at one of these guys basking out there in y'all's county. Here's a close-up of a female. She, like I said, is going to have the creams and these yellows, this white eye with a black iris. The Kegel's map turtle is going to have more of a chin bar that goes under their chin and not the 3 spots like a Texas map turtle. But again, very unique pattern. They're also suited for eating things like corbicula, different diet than what the males eat, and different overall head shape and larger than the males. Same for Kegel's map turtles. Let's see. Here's some of our volunteers when we went down this past summer to survey for Kegel's map turtles and whatever other turtles we caught during the survey, walking along the beautiful Guadalupe River. This very awesome park that y'all may recognize, seems like every time we go, if you look at this little stump back here, there's always a couple of female Texas cooters basking on that stump. And it just makes for a great location and area to go and visually observe turtles. So here's the Texas cooters, and then here's the map turtles basking nearby at this really, great park that you'll have access to. So as we were down there, we took a break from surveying Kegel's map turtles and went to see if we could hand capture or trap any map turtles at this location. One of our volunteers, this young man, decided to go out in the kayak and scoop a couple turtles to see if he would see what he could catch. So he brought these back. We're just sitting there on the edge looking at these turtles, and one of the young men that's a student pointed over to me and said, "Hey, what's this on the belly of the shell?" And I think y'all might be able to make it out, like right here, and it's this blotch right here. So I scratched it with my fingernail, and I turned to Carl and Dr. Meek, and I said, "Hey guys, this looks like invertebrate eggs." So we all look at them, we take some really close pictures, scrape them off, and then come back here and start researching on what they could be. Here's, you can see where I even scraped some off. So come to find out, we identified them as caddis fly eggs. So a really cool natural history observation and little publication, that something that we got to learn about caddis fly laying its eggs on the belly of these turtles living there. So again, something that hasn't been known, that wasn't previously documented from these turtles before, but a really cool look into their role in our ecosystem again. Here's some of the group when we finished up that weekend surveying for turtles there in Kerr County. So quite an exciting, really good project was kicking off, and excited to get back down there. So we turtle, as we call turtling, the vast majority of the state. This is a common sight anywhere in the hill country. Here's a Texas map turtle and a spiny softshell hanging out on a rock together. We cover lots, can learn lots of data as well from by observing over bridges and going under bridges and these little fishing spots to see what's basking on all these logs and deadfall and rocks. And a lot of times it turns up turtles basking out there. We can learn a lot just by visually documenting and taking these detailed photographs of turtles. So I've got a sheet that I fill out to just, gather our data. And a lot of times when we look over these bridges and overpasses and we're looking underwater, we want to look and sneak up on them, because a lot of times there's something looking back at us. In this photo, here's a common musk turtle, which is going to lead us into the next species that I'm going to cover. It's a common and eastern musk turtle, which are found, has been documented from these counties in red. So the counties in your area of the hill country. They are a small, oval shaped, almost look like little rocks plenty of times. Sometimes they're covered in lots of algae. They've got a very significant plastron and a bit of a pointy nose with some yellow striping down the side of the head. Here's an example of a baby eastern musk turtle. They are some of the tiniest hatchlings out there. They almost look like a little acorn or a really small pecan. More black when they're younger. Again, the striping on the side of the head, and they vary once they get older. So why are they called musk turtles, mud and musk turtles? Well, I'm going to get into that. Here is a unique turtle that can be found in these, been documented from, these counties in red. And if you're lucky enough to find one crossing the road, they have a unique habitat selection and unique behavior to them. They prefer things like stock tanks, cattle ponds, even ditches. So after really, really hard rain, if you're in a rural area, you might be lucky to see a yellow mud turtle crossing your path or in your vicinity. They are a smaller oval shaped turtle, kind of some olive greens and some browns to them. If you look at them face on, it kind of looks like they've been squished a little bit. And if you look here at the front of the plastron, they've got a hinge, which is going to be a unique identifier for some of these mud and musk turtles. This yellow mud, you see, they kind of could close up a little bit like a box turtle, but not completely. So here's what a belly or plastron and a front on look for a yellow mud turtle. There's some yellowish in here, but again, it's going to vary depend on where you are in the state and that kind of stuff. So they're called mud and musk turtles from a substance that they excrete from the Wraith glands. So it's glands that are located here by the bridge or the side edge of the turtle. It doesn't come from the cloaca, from their tail. It comes from this side of them. So musk turtles and many different turtles have this musk that they produce when they feel threatened, or if you pick them up or move them around, it's a very stinky, foul smelling musk. That's why they're called mud and musk turtles. If you have what you think might be a yellow mud turtle and you're looking to ID it, one thing that you can look for is this edge of the turtle shell is called the marginals, and the 9th marginal will be higher than these others. So that's something that you can look for if you're ever also looking to ID and you're posting it anywhere to help whoever is looking at that turtle for you, help you ID it. So here's mud and musk turtle side by side of just how different the plastron is. Here's a mud, it's going to have that hinge and a larger plastron. This musk turtle is going to be more reduced and smaller. And then, of course, some side by sides of the face of the mud and musk, very similar. I think that there's definitely birds that are harder to ID, but you know, if you're looking and you have one in your hand and you're trying to ID it for INAT or send to us, these are things you can look at, and definitely getting pictures of the plastron when it comes to these two. The beautiful Bandera County, we spent some time turtling Bandera County the last couple years, and this was on a pretty chilly December day. We got lucky though and saw these Texas cooters out basking. So here's another beautiful image of the Medina River there in Bandera County where we've looked to find this Texas cooter cruising along on a chilly December day. And of course, no shortage of Texas cooters in this county. We definitely going to be back and continue to go look at this part of the state, but it was pretty nice for it being December to see this many turtles out basking and us getting to, you know, peek into their private lives for a little bit. Menard County, another county that I think y'all's chapter covers. Very special county. The president of our organization, Carl Franklin, actually has property out here. So he has spent lots and lots of time turtling the San Saba River and other parts of Menard County. Here's a Texas map turtle that can be found in the San Saba rivers. You know, the beautiful county it is. Here's another female Texas map turtle cruising along that you can see crossing the road as she's going to nest or go from one body of water to the other. And of course, no shortage of the common musk turtles, and they just look like little rocks running along the river there. So he's done lots of trapping and documenting and studying of the turtles in Menard County. Here's a beautiful common site of a bunch of Texas cooters lined up on a sunny day. So he's done quite a bit of work and, you know, mark, measure, weigh, pit tag some turtles. So even some work that he did back in 2017, someone found one of the turtles and posted it on iNaturalist. And so he was able to look up the data of when he originally captured it, weighed it, and could see just how far it traveled from where he originally caught it. So we know they travel a good distance, but this was just a good, quick little snapshot of an example of the distance that this Texas cooter had covered from where he originally caught it. So really neat observation and things that we learned here. I'm gonna cover the Texas tortoise. This tortoise is documented from the counties here in red, so south of y'all, but it's not super uncommon for them to pop up north of there. We have seen them pop up even up here in North Texas to where I'm at. And of course, that is either translocated or someone tried to keep one as a pet and then it got out, that sort of thing. But yeah, you could come across a Texas tortoise in south if you're ever traveling in the counties south of y'all. It is the smallest tortoise in North America, and it's the only tortoise native to Texas, and they are a protected species. So this is going to be a pretty small tortoise. The males possess what is called this gular scoot, which is a protrusion from the plastron under its chin, and they're really large if they're a male. They're much smaller if they're a female, and they're used for fighting other male tortoises in combat during mating season. So really unique, special, great-looking little tortoise that we have here in the state. Here's one that we found. We were down there in Cotulla one year. looking for Texas tortoises, and I spotted this in the fence line, and I got super excited just to run over and realize that it was only the shell of this Texas tortoise left. So a threat, aspect to this Texas tortoise was it getting stuck in the fencing here and dying, just couldn't push its way back out. So, but it also good overall example of the shell shape and color. Some will be darker like this with these little lighter spots in the center of the scutes, which is this, segments of the shell here, and some will be much lighter in color. So it really varies on how old they are and different factors, but is an example of the overall shell shape of a Texas tortoise. Texas tortoise is a neat story about Texas tortoise and just how far we've come and some interesting history on this species. Back in the 1950s, Texas tortoises were commercially collected by the thousands. Longtime friends of Carl's told us this story. There was a tortoise dealer outside of Laredo, and Texas tortoise, because they were small, they were commonly sold as pets, but then they were also used for a cosmetic company. Their oils were used to make a type of like skin cream. And so that's a pretty interesting thing that they were used and exploited and taken from Texas in such large numbers. This article is from the International Turtle and Tortoise Society, published in 1967-68. And it was showing, here's a close-up of this article, let's see, showing how many tortoises were taken from Texas during that time. Like I said, for the pet, for cosmetic trade, and this house was just full of Texas tortoises. So the article highlights, conservationists and people in Texas really pushing to protect the Texas tortoise and stop this commercial trade of them for Texas. And lucky for us, of course, they're protected now, but it's really neat little aspect of the history of the Texas tortoise. Let me see. So we've all heard of birding. Some of y'all have heard of herping and now turtling. Well, what is turtling? It's very similar to birding. It can be anything from helping with a turtle survey to just going out and observing them naturally and observing them in our river systems. I mentioned a little bit how poaching is such an issue. So things like obscuring locations on iNaturalist. There's things you can remove the data on your phone whenever you take a picture. And overall, just trying to raise awareness and get people excited on how important turtles are. And, there's this big following with birds kind of wanting to do the same thing as far as lending a hand and appreciating and understanding what turtles do in our ecosystem. So changing gears a little bit, going back to some turtle questions that we get. I want everyone to take a really good look at these photos. This is probably the biggest question we get every year and every spring when turtles start moving again. This kind of, again, a unique oval shell shape with browns, tans, sometimes they're even completely black. You'll notice the very long fingernails on this one, and people always will ask us, what kind of turtle is this? So this is what is called a melanistic male red-eared slider. When males reach the size of adult mature females, they do this color shift and they lose that bright red and green that is significant of a red-eared slider and become muted or spotted. You can kind of see where they've lost the red ear in some of these pictures. And they turn brown or solid black. And I just think they're very, very pretty, but makes it a lot harder for people to really ID it. So that is a melanistic male red-eared slider. So touching on sliders a little bit, a lot of people have become aware how red-eared sliders are now one of the most invasive species across the globe. So they can adapt to pretty much any habitat and have been found all over the world, but they are native to Texas, so we don't have to worry about them being an invasive species. We can love them, appreciate them, and enjoy them, and appreciate the role that they play in our ecosystems here. coming in and touching on the common snapping turtle. So this is one of 2 snapping turtle species that occur in Texas. The counties here in red. So a pretty common wide distribution for the common snapping turtle. And they've got a much longer neck, and they look kind of cute in this picture, but can be pretty defensive and feisty. Here's what the plastron of a common snapping turtle looks like. A lot smaller, reduced plastron on these guys. And common snapping turtles often get confused with alligator snapping turtles. So in y'all's region of the state, you're going to find common snapping turtles. Could it possibly find alligator snapping turtle? Maybe, if it was like a released pet or somehow translocated there. But alligator snapping turtles stick to these counties to the east, in the east side of Texas. So here's some side-by-sides of a common snapping turtle and an alligator snapping turtle. The common snapper is going to have this larger, smoother, kind of oval shell shape. They're going to have a much longer neck and a lot smaller of a head. The alligator snapping turtle has these really 3 big distinct ridges, a much pointier head, a much pointier beak, and a much shorter neck. And of course, when some snapping turtles are younger, they kind of have a little bit of a ridges, but you're going to really look at these other factors that even though a common snapping turtle has some ridges, it's still an alligator, still a common snapping turtle, not an alligator snapper. Baby commons, you have a little bit of some ridges here, but yet this long neck and the overall head shape makes it a common. Let's see. I'm going to touch a little bit about the western alligator snapping turtle. Like I said, it's not one you're going to find in your counties, but there's a lot of research and work going on with them, including big factors when it comes to poaching. This is the largest freshwater turtle in the Western Hemisphere. They are humongous. They have the only turtle with a appendage in their mouth. It's a lure. They've got this tongue that looks like it resembles a worm. Sometimes they're pink. They can be different colors. And they'll sit on the bottom of their river system and just kind of wait and wiggle this worm and coaxing fish to come closer so they can get a meal. So they do eat fish. They don't eat copious amounts of fish. They eat lots of other things that we've learned through diet studies, things like pecans, seeds, acorns, feathers, different things, other turtles. So they have quite a variety when it comes to diet. So like I mentioned, they are the largest freshwater turtle in the Western Hemisphere. They are very large, very charismatic, and something that everyone can gets excited about. It's been really, really neat working with these. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of work currently going on with this species across the state of Texas, not just us, but other organizations working to find out more about them. I mentioned they get very, very large. This really awesome thing happened last year. These are some young men from Stephen F. Austin University that have caught a record size, the current record for Texas, at 211 pounds. They're out studying alligator snapping turtles as well and have caught the biggest. So super exciting, really neat for us to learn and find out that there's still these really big leviathans out there, and just a really, really amazing thing overall. So alligator snapping turtles and poaching. Because these guys are so highly sought after and they're such unique and charismatic turtles, has been an issue with people coming to Texas, stealing our turtles and funneling them back over to Louisiana. So all these counties and regions along the border from Texas and Louisiana have been cause for concern. Louisiana allows the take of 1 alligator snapping turtle per person per day. So this makes Louisiana a laundering state, not just for alligator snapping turtles, but lots of other species from across the U.S. that are sent to Louisiana, laundered to make it look like they were captive or from there, and then exported overseas or exported, sold on the black market. So I'm going to skip this slide and going to have a time check Frank, are we good on time? I think I'm going to have to jump and skip this story.
Yes, Vivian, sorry about that. It is 7:43. So
okay, so 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to jump from ASTs to finish off the work and some of the alligator cemetery work that we've done, as well as this other stuff. We are so lucky, so fortunate to have an amazing community of turtle nerds, enthusiasts, biologists, people from zoos come out and lend a hand for our research and this huge citizen scientist project. We've had teamed up with some amazing landowners that have just been so incredibly helpful and so excited over things like filling this Texas-sized hole and gaining more insight into the turtles here in Texas. Last year, we kicked off what is now called Snapperpalooza, and it's private landowners in Southeast Texas that are just super gracious for allowing us to go out there and set our hoop traps and conduct this study that we're going to do. We go out twice a year for Snapperpalooza, and they got the name, frankly, because we went out there and trapped so many alligator snapping turtles from hatchling size all the way up to about 80 pounds, and the name stuck. So this is one study site that we go out to twice a year, mark, measure, weigh, pit tag, collect our whole sorts of data. Here's an example of how we weigh such a large alligator snapping turtle. It's a calf sling, this really sturdy sling that they use for weighing calves on a farm, heavy duty material to keep these guys comfortable as we weigh them because they are really heavy. So as an example of how we safely weigh an alligator snapping turtle, and again, collecting the things like the carapace length, shell height, plastron, all this set of data that we plan to continue on year after year after year, do things like collect blood and DNA samples. So it's just been a really, really incredible, amazing to see so many wonderful people come out and help out. So that's how we got Snapperpalooza as one of our study sites. And then this is last year's worth of turtle surveys of the group photos from all the different surveys we did across the state. It's been, like I mentioned, just so incredible to have so many wonderful people. And I'm so appreciative to so many volunteers and landowners that have taken time and given us donations and just helped us across the board with all these research endeavors that we have. Here's how you find us. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Website is texasturtles.org. Not too late to buy a calendar. This past year, we teamed up with our friends at the Turtle Room and did a joint calendar that can be found on their website. We get a proceeds of calendar sales. And then if you pop over to our website, texasturtles.org, we do sell some of the coolest turtle shirts around in black and gray, and then other things like donations can be made through our website and stickers. We have stickers for sale on our website. If you need more turtle information, Carl Franklin, our president, had put out a few books. He also has this little laminated field guide that he did a few years back. They can be found at many nature centers. And it's just a quick, easy little reference laminated field guide. And if you still want to get more information on turtles, he's actually going to do the Rio Grande Valley Master Naturalist talk tomorrow. If anyone's interested, I could probably send y'all that link too. And he's going to be covering a whole different species of turtles for the Rio Grande Valley. Let's see. Thank you guys. I want to thank of course, everyone again. Such an amazing group of volunteers and citizen scientists and biologists that come out and help us every year. And so it's just been absolutely incredible. I'm ready to take any questions if y'all have any.
Okay, Viviana, I'll start with one question.
Sure.
Throughout the presentation, people are handling the turtles. So I guess it's okay to handle them. Do they get damaged or anything happens to them?
Yeah, I mean, they're very tough. And so in order for us to collect data, our, DNA, all that stuff, they're handled just like you would do any other like bird banding, if that makes sense. So they're all kept, in individual bins as to not get hurt. And, we basically catch them, collect our data, and release them, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So kind of like people do bird banding. I mean, we do some visual observations, but then there's sometimes only so much you can learn when you don't collect blood, collect DNA, collect those specific shell measurements and things like that. So yeah, that's a very important role in our research. Yeah, it's such a minor inconvenience for them, but we get them in and out as quickly as possible.
Okay. So I guess if you want to learn about the identification, if you're not familiar, you have to kind of pick it up and take the picture of it.
It really is. It really helps. I mean, looking at them like in hand helps tremendously. I mean, I've been looking at these animals the majority of my life. So it's easy for me to tell even from a silhouette or something far away. So looking at them in hand really helps with anybody learning. Of course, if it's done short and quick and, we let them go immediately, it's not an issue. Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, we're all permitted. We're permitted for everything, and all the protected species we're permitted to handle. Like the alligator snapping turtles are protected in Texas, and we're permitted to handle all of those.
Okay. Well, Carlos sent a question, and it says, "Are there any opportunities for us helping with surveys in our area, and how do we do that?"
Sure. So we have some surveys that are going to be open and some that are more closed. Obviously, with Snapperpalooza, we've got a cap at how many people we can actually have out there and stuff like that. But yeah, there's definitely going to probably see some chances as it continues, as now we're coming out of COVID season. Hopefully, we had everything really small these last couple years. And so if you shoot me an email whenever we're back in your area, I can send out a call for volunteers, but it's really going to be case by case basis right now on how many people we need. But yeah, feel free to shoot us an email. Our email's on our website and stuff like that.
Okay.
We had a safety concern question in the chat. Are there diseases that one can catch from handling turtles?
After handling any animal or anything like that, you should wash your hands. Go to the grocery store, wash your hands. People seem to be concerned, maybe sometimes overly concerned with things like salmonella. Lots of things carry salmonella: birds, eggs, cookie dough, raw chicken. So, I mean, just like the protocols you handle in your kitchen, wash your hands and stuff like that. But from helping a turtle cross the road or participating in a survey, I mean, I've never been sick, knock on wood. The only time Carl has ever gotten salmonella is that he was eating raw cake batter. So that goes to tell you, in all the many years of us handling turtles, it hasn't been an issue. And like I said, we just wash our hands. Just wash your hands.
Okay. There's another individual that I guess he was thinking the same thing I was, is why are some called turtles and some tortoise? What's the difference?
Sure. So tortoises are different than turtles because they do primarily live on land, and they have different features and shell shape and different, more rounded elephant-like feet on the tortoises. So they're going to be specifically the land dwellers. Obviously, I didn't have time to cover everything for Texas, but the Texas tortoise that we have here is our only tortoise, and they have just a very, more of like elephant-like stubby feet that are not made for like swimming in the rivers and lakes and stuff like that.
Okay, that's makes sense. See anything more? Do any snapper bites?
No one has been, well, so obviously anything with a mouth bites. I've actually been bit by a box turtle when I was a kid. That was incredibly painful. Few people have been bitten by the red ear sliders when we're sampling turtles, but nothing, I mean, from an alligator snapping turtle. Obviously, we have, been doing this for many, many years. We were doing one little filming for Animal Planet a few years back, and we were holding up the alligator snapping turtles, and Carl actually got his finger grazed by a snap from an alligator snapping turtle. And I thought he'd lost his finger by the time I looked over, and cameras were still rolling. So he said, just keep going. So he kept filming, and lucky for us, he only got a little bit of his finger grazed. and didn't, that was all it was. So, I mean, yes, it's possible for them to really hurt someone, but that's, again, years of experience and just abundance of caution, and why we have, some really amazing volunteers that are known to know how to work with these animals as well. They're really not, they're giant puppy dogs. The alligator snapping turtles are a lot more calm as the bigger they are. The smaller they are, the feistier they are. So it's typically not an issue.
Okay, well, that's good information. Here's another one that says, what is the lifespan of the snapping turtles and other turtles?
Sure, they live very long time. It depends. Some documentations for like box turtles over 100 years. Alligator snapping turtles, it could easily be over 100 years. Some of the captivity stuff that's been documented is over 80 plus years. So because they live so long, it definitely makes these type of studies and research more critical, because we want to find out as much as we can while we're alive. So all these turtles should outlive us. And any given species lives a very long time. Okay.
All right. Here comes another question. It says, are iNaturalist observations of turtles useful?
Yes. There are some people and some organizations that use it. It has helped us in some cases. We have a Texas Turtles iNaturalist. I don't get on iNaturalist very often because it'll just take me away for hours, and I will just go and ID turtles for hours on end, and before I know it, I've spent hours doing that. So it can help us, but again, some people really shy away from things like iNaturalist because of the poaching aspect. So definitely, use it with caution.
Okay, so back to your point earlier that you said because of the I guess the tagging of the picture where it was taken based on the phone. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so another one, and I was going to ask this too, but he covered it. Says, do the very cold temps last year affect the turtles? Or they?
Great question. I had it in another presentation originally, but I took it out for this one. With the big freeze, these turtles do range. A lot of them range further north, and they are incredibly hardy. And being able to, they get down and bury deep in the mud and the muck of these river systems. And we don't have any evidence before, during, or after of any dead turtles. I'm sure some could have died if they were already compromised before going into the ice storm. But we actually went out to a local, very urban pond here in North Texas for that specific reason, to see if we'd find any dead turtles floating around anywhere. And as soon as the sun came out, a lot of these turtles were out on a cool day. The sun's shining and it's pretty cold and chilly, and they would be out basking. We were wondering about the Texas tortoise because their range is so far south and a lot warmer climate. Some people originally saying that they think that some might have died off, but I really don't think that there's any before data to really show. One student was doing some radio telemetry with the Texas tortoise, and all of his, I think, made it, from what I remember him saying. So they're pretty tough, and maybe some passed away if they were already not doing great, but they're survivors. They've been around this earth millions of years, so they fared okay during the ice storm from our knowledge at this point.
Okay, well, and along with that question is, are they affected by the different seasons in the year, or?
Sure. So when it's cooler, they definitely go into hibernation or brumation. Some species will be a little more active all year round. We can definitely have gone here in North Texas. We've seen turtles out basking after some chilly days and the sun comes out again. So it does slow down in the wintertime, and all of our surveys and the majority of our field and research work is done in the spring and summer months. So that's when everybody's really out looking to mate and make babies and nest. So yeah, there's definitely a slowdown in the winter.
Okay, it looks like they're beginning to put a lot of questions in the chat. So we'll kind of stop at a certain point, but right now it says, how long does it take a tortoise to grow 211 pounds?
No idea. So no idea. A lot of things that we tell people when they ask, how old is a turtle? That seems to be a really common question when people are like, well, how old is it when it's that big? each species is different. Some grow at a quicker rate when they're young. So when they're little, they want to get as big as they can, you know, as fast as they can. And then they'll slow down for many, many, many years. So an alligator snapping turtle might stay the same size for years after years after years, but then have a little bit more of a growth. So it just, there's no real telling without going into things like dissection and some really more detailed, intricate things on finding out how old something is and how big something can get. Things like what food they have available will be a factor on how big they can grow, especially like things in captivities with zoos. Any animal in captivity is going to have a different growth rate than a true wild turtle, if that makes any sense. So it just really depends on so many factors down to each species, down to if it's male or female.
Okay.
All kinds of things like that.
Okay, I think we'll ask this question and then we'll call it an evening for you because you did a great presentation. But here's the last question. It says, what is the best resource to ID all the Texas turtle using the marking cues you documented?
Sure. Our website, texasturtles.org, becoming familiar with pictures like that. Field guides, I think, are really great. Like I mentioned, the little one that Carl put out. Things like that. Some people really find iNaturalist helpful. Looking at pictures over and over and over. I think for some people, our Texas Turtles Facebook group, will show a lot of different photographs and saying this is a Texas map turtle, or we saw this turtles today, and these are all basking Texas cooters. Things like that, to where you can see the name and the image side by side.
Okay. Well, Viviana, I think this is great. Thank you for your time. It looks like you did a lot of talking. It's like, I was surprised you to say, let me take a minute so I can drink some water and continue talking. But thank you. It was a great presentation. Hopefully we can meet again in person.
Absolutely. Feel free to email us, reach out to us at any time. Like I said, I can only cover a small amount in 45 minutes. So that's what I was able to squeeze in.
Okay.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okie dokie. Bye.